Now, as the OED's editor for World Englishes, I am particularly interested in documenting how English words are used in different parts of the world. Now, in this part, I'll briefly show you some examples of how the OED can help researchers answer a variety of questions on how English is used across the globe. It can aid in investigating questions like which words are used in specific English-speaking countries or region. So we can go to the OED and I'll show you how we can answer that question. If we go to advanced search, if you scroll down and look at the different categories on this list, we can see the words that belong to the different varieties of English recorded in the OED. If we go over to these regional English categories, so we can use these different categories to see which words belong to different varieties of English as documented in the dictionary. Say, for example, if we click on African English, and we can click on the drop down here and refine that even further and see that African English comprises over 1,000 entries in the OED, and it also includes South African English with 962 entries, East African English with 95, and West African English with 62, and that also includes Nigerian English as a subset. Another question, what are the dominant semantic fields in a specific variety of English, and what do they say about the culture of the community that speaks this variety? So again, go to advanced search. And then if we go to language of origin, then expand Indo-European, then expand Indo-Iranian, and then select Indo-Aryan, a category which includes words in the OED that originate in Indian subcontinent languages. We see that there are 1,465 entries in the dictionary that come from languages such as Bengali, Hindi, Sanskrit, and Urdu. Now, if in this search we scroll down to the subject categories, which we have down here, we see that 308 of these words, or 21% of these words, belong to the subject category religion and belief. And further limiting the search results to this category by clicking on it and examining the list that this brings up reveals the nature and significance of these South Asian words. So even if we just quickly scroll up and down the list, we can see that the words in this category are words relating to principles of Buddhist and Hindu philosophy and mythology, or to specific practices of these religions, such as yoga and religious festivals. Many of these words have gained such currency in English that they have developed extensions of meaning and become part of everyday vocabulary. So we've seen there some words such as avatar, guru, juggernaut. We have karma here, mantra, nirvana, and pandit. Now, next question. Which languages have had the most influence on a specific variety of English? Again, using advanced search, this time, again, going to regional English, and this time selecting Caribbean English, then going up to language of origin, we see that Caribbean vocabulary mostly comprises words of English origin, as well as loan words from European languages such as Spanish and French. So if you click on Indo-European, you see that there are many Caribbean borrowings coming from Romance languages, such as French, which is a Gallo-Romance language, and Spanish and Portuguese, which are Ibero-Romance languages. But Caribbean words in the OED also includes words that have been borrowed from African languages, also some Indian languages, and indigenous languages of the Americas, and Caribbean Creoles. Another question: how can certain words show the historical links between different geographical areas? So if we go back to our previous advanced search, we see that there are 7 Caribbean English words that come from Indian languages. So we can bring up the list of them by clicking here and selecting this category. So there are only 7 words, so they may be just a few of them right now, but they are evidence of the linguistic impact of Indo-Caribbeans on Caribbean English, a result of the history of the indentured laborers from India in the wider subcontinent who were brought by the British, Dutch, and French during the colonial era from the mid-19th century to the early 20th century, and whose descendants form an important part of Caribbean society today. Okay, next question. Is a word really a coinage in a specific variety of English or a preserved archaic use from another variety? One simple but fundamental question for lexical studies of World Englishes that can be answered by simply consulting an OED entry is whether a word or sense that has been found to be characteristic of a particular variety is indeed a new word or sense that developed within this variety. So one typical example of a word that many people consider to be unique to Philippine English is comfort room, which is one of the most commonly used terms in the Philippines to refer to a toilet. However, the OED entry for comfort room contains evidence of this compound being used in the United States as early as 1886, as you can see here, continuing to be used by Americans during the early years of the American occupation of the Philippines, thus giving an indication of when the term may have been picked up by Filipinos, and then falling out of use in America in the mid-20th century and remaining in current use only in the Philippines. The OED provides convincing proof that comfort room is not a Philippine coinage, but rather an archaic usage in American English preserved in contemporary Philippine English. Final question: how have spelling conventions changed for certain World English words? So to answer this, we look at another OED entry, gotch, as an example, and go to the form section that we skipped earlier here. This section shows the different ways that a word has been spelled throughout its history. This is particularly interesting for loanwords that have been borrowed into English from other languages, as it usually takes time before firm spelling rules for such loanwords are set. For instance, gotch, a Canadian slang term for underpants, which traces its origins to the Ukrainian language. This was borrowed from the Ukrainian word for trousers, gachi, and combined with the English s plural ending to form the variants gonchis, gotchis, gotchis, ginchis, and gitchis. These were then transformed through back formation to the variants gonch, ginch, gitch, gonch, and gotch. The choice of variant depends on which part of Canada a speaker is from. There seems to be a preference for gotchis in Ontario, for gitch and gotch in Saskatchewan and Manitoba, and for gonch and other variants with N in Alberta and British Columbia. So thank you very much.